Shall we start? Good evening, everyone. A ve- Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to each one of you to this online workshop on AI and business, policy challenges, and emerging opportunities. As we commence this session, I would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to Reverend Father James CMI, Principal, Christ College of Science and Management, for his constant support and encouragement. I take this opportunity to sincerely thank and welcome Father in his absence. I also extend a warm welcome to our respected faculty members, dear students, and all the enthusiastic participants who have joined us today. Your presence and interest make this event truly meaningful. It is now my privilege to introduce the keynote speaker for this evening's workshop. We are delighted to welcome Mr. Aswin Prabhakar as the keynote speaker this evening. Mr. Aswin is a policy scholar with a strong background in technology and innovation policy. We are delighted to welcome Mr. Aswin Prabhakar as the keynote speaker for this evening. He formerly worked as a policy analyst at the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation. He earned his master's degree in economics from George Mason University, where he was a James Buchanan Fellow, and also holds an integrated master's degree in development studies from the IIT Madras. His research primarily focuses on the policy implications of emerging technologies with a particular emphasis on open source AI models. We are pleased to have him here and look forward to his insights on AI, business, and policy. I will now invite Mr. Ashwin to begin the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Amelia, for the warm welcome. Let me share my screen just a minute. Okay, so good evening, everyone. So today I'll be speaking AI and business challenges and emergencies. That in itself is like a pretty long topic, honestly, the name itself. So I'll try to keep it short. So my major focus in my career is mostly on policy. And when I'm giving a talk to say business students, I can't really be talking about what are the kind of policies that the government should be taking. I think I should really focus on what are the kind of business opportunities or more of a business angle to things. So that's what I have tried to do with this specific presentation. And just to check before I kind of go on a huge monologue, can everyone hear me properly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Is it clear?
Yes, that's clear.
Okay, cool. So I work as a policy analyst in tech policy. So about what are the kind of harms posed AI could pose, and then how we can kind of manage that. But if I were to give an actual take on AI, I would say go ahead, build the businesses and then see what are the kind of problems that arise. So in a spiritual way, I think I'm more in line with you guys on this. So let's initially I'll just go through what AI is, just to get everyone on the same page with regards to going through it. Then I'll go through what are the kind of worries so much these days, and then about what are the kind of opportunities, what are the kind of benefits, and what exactly are the different sectors involved in AI, and what are the kind of sectors that AI is more likely to kind of replace, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. then go into like, say what are the kind of allied industries where there could be like spillover effects or positive externalities and negative externalities. And then go into like, few case studies, I mean, pretty short case studies, so that you could see like policy, AI, and like, the positive and negative externalities all coming together. And that will be like, then that will kind of play the, that will be the majority of presentation. And a short like towards the end, I'll try to discuss like what would be my angle to see these sort of things as well. So yeah, let's start. So A is top mostly because it's going to be like huge industry. Right now, it's about like $300 billion are like spent every year on AI. But by 2025, it's like going to be like 25 billion, and that's like just in India. And so that's like the equivalent of like what we are spending on education. And education in most countries is like a huge sector that we spend a lot of money on. And it's not just like the money factor. A lot of people, that I'm sure like almost everybody like used AI to like do well on one of the same purpose or like a instance. And from economic growth standpoint, it's really important because there's productivity enhancements. There's also going to be like a lot of new revenue streams. ChatGPT is as a business model, like it's like a lot of people used to for software service. Now with the advent of ChatGPT, a lot of people are paying for it. I think like people who used to buy Microsoft Office was like, businesses because they didn't want to like face a lot of potential lawsuits. A lot of people were like, if it comes with a laptop, I don't mind paying for it. Otherwise, people were not going to like spend on it. But right now with ChatGPT, like people are like, okay, this is something that's like really valuable. So that in itself like shows why this is like being talked a lot. And when you talk about AI, like it's not really just like OpenAI who makes those models are like really important. There are like many industries, many players are involved. And in fact, if you look at it, like the companies that have gone up most in valuation is Nvidia, not Microsoft, which quasi owns OpenAI, or Amazon, which quasi Anthropic, people who are like helping these companies build those. And recently, like I think like it was like few days back that OpenAI made one of their biggest acquisitions. They bought Windsor, which is supposedly called like a wrapper over like VS Code. But what it does is like it makes coding way more easier for software engineers, and that's the service. In fact, uses OpenAI models under the hood, but like they had to buy more because they're like whatever overlay they had over their own models pretty good. So AI makers build those models. Those are the hardware providers, data infrastructure providers, and then there are like organizations or like businesses that kind of use the services themselves to create a new product. That's like or Hugging Face who hosts like a lot of these open source. And then there's like obviously the people who make these models like OpenAI or Anthropic. And what's not like outside of the value chain, there are other industries that are involved as well. This is like the core like value chain. Like if I were to like build something, what are the kind of interacting with who are the people that are like mostly involved within the AI space. And so now like let's look at the positive impact of AI on like different industries. These are like not industries per se, these are like other industries where there's like a positive externality that's happening. I want to like keep this within like something that you guys might be like more familiar with within the Indian business space. And one of the most popular like chatbots I think is like Eva by HDFC. And usually like if you kind of hire someone to answer this, first of all you have to like train them. It's going to take a long time to like train these people. And then like people could be like tired of like doing this, responding to these people on the same questions for like 6 hours. It's understandable that they would be tired. But in case of like AI, it's like not tired, works 24/7. and it's like on average it's smarter than like most humans, like on a wide range of activities, which is like very specific. Not like, if you were to ask it some complicated like questions and you're like based, or like if even if any kind of economics question, it kind of alters. But if it's like these are the kind of procedural things that we do, and there's like, line 27p, what is the process for scenario, you'd pretty well easily memorize that and give. And in those sort of situations where like, the space of responses that's like pretty limited and it's very standardized, it's really good. And that's just right now we're just seeing the initial stages, and it could possibly like, take over almost all customer support. And like, if people could possibly be like using headphones and responding to people in person, because people might favor talking to another person over talking to an AI. That's supposed to be like a business idea for some of you to follow. And then there's like a productivity boost, yes. And if I am using like AI to help me write things better, that's like that increases my productivity. I don't have to like, search for the right adjective that kind of goes well within the sentence. If I have to like shorten a sentence, it's like way easy to like ask AI like, why is this sentence so kind of irritating, or like it's not sounding right? What could be the problem? So similarly, like for people who make software, like software engineers, there are like coding softwares like Cursor or the Windsor that we mentioned before. Those sort of like tools make coding a lot more faster. And within like other industries like insurance, it's like it's insurance is an industry that used to use previous models or like the machine learning models themselves, and right now they're like trying to integrate AI into that. And I'm pretty sure like a lot of accounting software it also uses the newer AI based software as well. So those are like some of the positive spillovers. Again, it kind of makes all of us like way better at whatever we are doing. And so it means like, if we don't use it ourselves, we might be left behind compared to all of our peers. So that's like something that needs to be taken into consideration. Like maybe like there are, I know like friends who say okay, I'm able, but I mean like it able to do ask for the job as you could do if it's like the worst thing that I do. ChatGPT is like most of the time better at than me. Finding where are the spaces where value to be important in your like personal life, career, and there's going to be like business opportunities in that as well. And when it comes to like finance, like already from many years back itself, like firms on Wall Street or like the other street, they used to use AI to like figure out better trading strategies. And one of the recent innovations that AI, specifically the models that the large language models that have brought about is like understand this sentiment. So that's one of the reasons I believe that Twitter kind of made the APIs private, and you have to like now pay for accessing them, because if there's like a new earnings news, you can kind of like go through the tweets and figure out what is the current sentiment of the market, which is like a very valuable commodity for a lot of people, a lot of traders. And then robo advisors, you might have heard of them, and they kind of like help you manage your portfolios in a better manner. And obviously like UPF frauds and other like credit card frauds are easily detected thanks to AI as well. So these are like another like sector where there's a lot of positive externalities. But there's going to be like few negative externalities. Like my one of my professors used to say like finding cure for cancer would also have some people who are displaced, probably like people who used to provide cancer treatment. So you cannot say like even something that's insanely good would have like some sort of like drawbacks to that. So we'll just like go through what are the kind of like risks. I mean, suppose like it, I would not consider these to be like huge risks. Probably like most people would not consider that to be like a huge risk either. But for like a policymaker's perspective, this is a huge risk, because like people who used to provide these services who are right now out of business, are going to be voters and they are really interested in getting those votes. So like one of the main thing that's going to be automated away are going to be like, the basic things that anyone could do. So we could say like the age of average is over and you have to be like above average at things to kind of like make a living or like contribute in a positive manner. And so that sort of like child comment scores are like the age of average is over. And I would kind of sort of agree with that. So if you kind of do basic stuff that can be easily automated away with the help of AI, your job might be under risk. And going back to the part where I said like this is why you have to study using AI and trying to like maximize your productivity using AI tools. Another problem with related to the issue that we're talking about is like there's going to be economic polarization because some people are going to do far better once AI comes up, and some others are not going to do that. Well, even they might possibly see a slight decrease in their relative standing, and people are really concerned about like the relative wages, unfortunately, rather than their absolute wages. Like if everyone else is getting like 10 or 15% yours is getting like a 5. I mean, 5% raise is like better than 0%. But like you're going to be like, okay, someone else is getting like 15%. Why am I getting just 5%? And there's going to be like people who might have like negative wage growth as well. And so even now, like around the world, we kind of see parts of this because people with degrees, their earnings are growing at a way higher rate than those without degrees. And so economic populism, like the trade, a lot of things happening around the world could be seen as coming out of such, economic polarization. And AI is already going to like increase the rate that is happening. So that's something that you need to take into consideration. So when you kind of like, I'm pretty sure like many of the current model makers would do far better than they're doing, but they're like they don't really want that negative PR, and so they have to like be very concerned and act very responsibly with regards to that. And that's like something that needs to be taken into consideration. And I think thankfully, the current business, like the major model makers, have done a pretty good job. They have made sure like people are bought in and kind of see the AI products that are out there to be like pretty good rather than it's pretty bad. Maybe like giving the access to New York Times or other journalists initially, people who are like not huge fans of AI, and make them like stress test these models to see if they kind of come up with some wild responses was like a good idea. So this is something that is really out of control, to be honest. Like you could ask people to like upskill, but there's like a limit to how much you could do that. So things like, and people who are building these models are like floating ideas like what about a universal basic income, things like that. I think that's like way out of discussion. I mean, that's not something that we are going to like focus too much on, but it's something that needs to be taken into consideration. And now like just I've kind of been all over the place with a certain like new terminology, new stuff. Like I'll kind of like try to ground those things with regards to like after these case studies. And I'll go with like something that like almost all of you have seen. So Studio Ghibli, I think that's how it's pronounced. And it's been all over Twitter. I think like almost all social media had like people using turning the pictures into Ghibli form. And one thing that a lot of people miss within this is like there's like huge policy decision that Japan made that makes this possible. So in Japan, you can actually use any of their like artwork in model training and actually create new art with AI that follows the style, and it is allowed under something called fair use. But Disney or Marvel, DC Comics, these companies does not allow for that because they think like someone else using their IP is bad. But if you, I have never heard of anyone free art before this on Twitter and used it. And there's going to be like a lot of people who have never heard of Ghibli, but now it's like way more popular. And I believe the sales of those Ghibli art has gone up as well with the parent company. So that's why like there's going to be like post externalities, and you have to have the policy put in the place so as to maximize that. Just like there's a economic phenomenon that's happening, or like a thing that's happening, it's a policy decision that one certain country has made, and that kind of like amplified that. I believe like India should ideally take that. I'm not sure like what, maybe sort of be style after, I'm not sure like what exactly it would turn out to be, but there's gonna be like something fun to do with Indian art scenes as well. Another like I'm pretty sure like none of you have ever used check, but this was like a huge thing when I was in school. Where like unfortunately many of my professors, they used to like use the same questions over and over again. And if you wanted to know the answers, you could just go online on check. You could like check that. That's a huge thing. It was like a very expensive subscription to access those. And some of these questions like crazy, like very specific questions. And I'm not sure like where the professors got it, but apparently some of them were like used in 1960s and 1970s in like some of the biggest universities in the world. Maybe that's where they got those questions. But the right answers to them were like available on check, and that made like homework questions a little easy, thankfully. But like obviously you have to like study for the finals because you cannot really look things up. And but like companies like lost like what, like 99% of their like value after ChatGPT came out, because it's like easier to ask ChatGPT for the answer, and it kind of does. I mean, unless the question is already answered by someone on check, you cannot really access it. But ChatGPT, like you could like put in a new question and like get the answer. I mean, if check were like smart with the thing, they could have like sold the company to like OpenAI. Guess. See, they have a bunch of data on what are the kind of like things that the questions that are asked in many universities, the right answers, because they used to employ people to answer these questions and put it online. They had a huge data set that they could have like given to OpenAI or another AI company and exited the market, but they didn't. Unfortunately for them, like stock is like worthless right now. And Nvidia, like we talk a lot about like OpenAI, Anthropic, those sort of model makers, but their valuations are like pretty good. It's, I mean, like 100 billion is pretty good valuation, but like the market cap of Nvidia is almost like tripled. I think like if we bought like $10 worth of that stock like maybe like 10 years back, we'd probably like worth at least like $200 or something like that. And so yeah, it's a missed business opportunity or like investment opportunity. But like there's probably going to be like few more like those. And so it might not actually come from the model makers. And so you have to keep it in mind, like making models is based on what we know of right now. There are many open source models that are like as capable as the closed models. And so making models might not actually be very high value proposition. So the entry is like not somewhat typical. It costs like 10 million to like train a very basic level model. $10 million is like a lot of money for me or like most people. But if you're like a multi-billion venture capital fund, you could easily like lend 10 million dollars to one upstarting like one startup and create a new model. So if it's like a very competitive industry, like the profits are going to be like not very high. But if you're like kind of like near monopoly position in the high-end GPU chip market, like NVIDIA does, that's going to be like a very more valuable market. And so trying to figure out like what are the kind of industries or what are the kind of sectors that you could, or like businesses that you could create where entry is like slightly hard and you kind of provide a lot more value to the market, that would be the way to go. And usually like even during like gold rush, it's not really the people who used to dig out the gold who made a lot of money. So people who like sold the picks and shovels to like get the gold out of there. So something similar might be happening with AI as well. That needs to be like taken into consideration when you're like making business decisions. And this is like the main part that I am concerned with in my work. It's like, how do we maximize innovation while being smart with regulations? And sandboxes are like a pretty, it means like, okay, these are the kind of things that we are worried about, like RBI or any other regulator could say, these are the problems. So we have these guidelines for you to follow. As long as you follow those guidelines, but kind of mess up in other spaces, we are fine with it. And then after a while, you kind of check out what are the kind of mistakes these companies who follow those guidelines made. And then you kind of like try to rectify those. So it does not slow down innovation because already you have a leeway. It's like, okay, you can drive if you're like learning to drive, say, okay, you can drive, but don't go into spaces where like, there's a higher possibility of an accident. And once you kind of like drive through there and what are the kind of mistakes you make, you kind of can rectify that and then try to like, go into more scare roads, that kind of thing that I would say is the best way to regulate AI or any business in fact. So RB thankfully has like, with regards to fin technology has a sandbox. And when it comes to like AI, we talked about a bunch of possible risk and many like positives. So if it's like you're trying to automate something that kind of has access to your Aadhaar card data, for instance, I think like you should be like way more careful with that. You don't want to leak the information. You don't want someone to create a model that could possibly spit out like what sessions address, like it might accidentally spit out the right address. Those are things you don't really want that to happen. But like if it's just the 10 purpose that I have like written and given to my university, I don't mind that being used in training AI. And one of the unique situations that we are in is EU or like the European Union is like regulating things so badly that they don't really have, except for Mistral AI from France, there's no other good company that's like doing well in the AI space. So that's like a good space for like India to get into because like we have a lot of engineers and we have a lot of like people who are like tech savvy, business savvy, who are like very agentic. And so I think there's like a huge market that we could fill in. And this is like the major takeaways. AI stack is like layered. It's not just like few companies. There's going to be like other players in and around that. And there's like a huge upside for like not just those companies, for all individuals within the economy, but there are like real displacement risk. And so I think like one area where someone with like a BCom or like a commerce background could come in, you know, the way around this sports areas and it will like find that kind of use tech engineers to like build good businesses. So you really don't have understanding of how things work under the hood. Just need to like understand what are the kind of like what sort of impact does this have. Like Warren Buffett probably doesn't really know how exactly to Apple works or Apple makes phones, but one of the smartest business decisions that he made is like investing in Apple in 2016. It's more about understanding the business and like the policy landscape in AI's case because like they are like very highly interlinked, and then I believe you guys would like add a lot of value to the market. So I think like that would be the end of my presentation. I want to like make it a little interactive towards the end. So first of all, like start things off like I have like one question for you. If you had to like pick one area or like one thing within the university that you think should be automated or AI should be used to improve, what would it be? Like you guys don't know like what to put in within the university is like perfect as it is. And does like anyone else have any questions to ask? Like, because I don't want to like just go on another monologue. I would rather like take questions and have a discussion.
Sir, I have a
Sir, I have a
question.
question.
Okay.
Like tomorrow we
Tomorrow
have
we
this
have this
campus
campus
drive
drive
going
going
on
on
in
in
our
our
college.
college.
So I just wanted to know, kind of related to that. So which campus process could AI streamline? Like, I just wanted to ask that.
So I think I'm familiar with how universities run. But like going back to my university days, I think like, one area where I think I could have used is like, when you give the syllabus out, you could kind of use AI to like streamline that better. Like what are the kind of, okay, you could see like what are the kind of might be more applicable. Ask AI to like, okay, this is the background that I have and this is the syllabus that I want to study. What are the kind of background knowledge that I should have for each section of the course? And then do I kind of like have a full idea of that? And then if you don't have that, like, what can I do? Like get in line with that. So like when I was like doing economics and I had to like take a course in the same microeconomics to like advanced microeconomics, I need to have like certain math background. I need to have like certain background in say, auction theory. And maybe like, in our like microeconomics one or like the first course, we did not cover that properly. So you can look at the second syllabus and see what are the kind of things that were essential to have that, and then kind of suggest what could be done. That's like one area where I think like I think students themselves could actually use that because they know what are the kind of background that they have, or you can upload like if the courses that you do, your syllabuses are already uploaded, and then when you register for a new class, they could look back into what are the kind of classes you took, what are the kind of things that you might have to like be very well versed in. So that's like one area that when I look back in my college, the other thing is like with the process, I have no idea how universities run. Once again, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of processes that could be automated and used in AI. And from the student's perspective, like you could always ask, like, I have trouble with learning this part of thing. Explain like I am 5 years old. Now explain that I'm like 10 years old. Now explain that I'm like 20. Now explain that I have like done few courses in this. Now like I'm doing my bachelor's. How do you explain this? Like I could understand like when you explain this as I'm 5, but I could understand like when you explain it as like a bachelor's student. So where exactly do you think the gap is? So you could kind of use that as a conversational way. And one thing that I think the universities could do is like make it accessible to students, like maybe like teach them how exactly to like prompt it properly, because that's like a huge thing. Because these days like AIs are like specifically trained to make you feel good. So if you say like vaccines are bad, like sometimes they're probably going to say like, oh yeah, vaccines are bad, which is like a terrible advice to give. But if you are able to like prompt it in a way where you're okay, like I'm not a snowflake, I don't really mind if you call me out on being wrong, but I just want the right answer. So it's like what exactly is going through the background, or like what are the incentives the model is laid out with, and then trying to like prompt it to get the right answers. It's not specifically something that can be done to like improve a university procedure, but that's something that university could do with regards to AI that would improve everything else that you guys might be doing. But yeah, like I think like you guys might be like more aware about like some irritating thing that you might have to do, or like something that's just like pain to deal with. And then that's why I wanted to like know what are the kind of things that you have seen and think that could be like improved with AI. Any other questions? And you can like also write your questions out in the chat if you want. If you're like, scared of like speaking up. Does any of the faculty have any questions?
So I hope everyone is happy with this session. With that, we come to the end of this insightful workshop on AI and business policy challenges and emerging opportunities. Before we conclude, I now invite Ms. Shivakavya from 3rd BCom Logistics to deliver the vote of thanks. Shivakavya, please.
Thank you, Ram. As we draw the curtains of this workshop, on behalf of the organizing team, I extend my heartfelt thanks to each one of you for making today's workshop on AI and business policy changes and emerging opportunities a great success. First and foremost, I express a sincere gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Mr. Aswin Prabhakar, for sharing their valuable insights, deep knowledge, and thought provoking perspectives on the evolving intersection of artificial intelligence, business strategy, and public policy. Your contributions have not only enlightened us, but also sparked meaningful discussions that will continue beyond this session. A special thanks to Reverend Father Jens George CMI in his absence for this throughout support. I would also like to thank Ms. Amulopriya Prabhakaran, teacher coordinator, for her thought provoking idea to bring this seminar to life. To our participants, thank you for your enthusiastic engagement, insightful questions, and for being part of this important conversation. Your active participation truly enriched the dialogue. As we conclude, let us carry forward the ideas shared today and work towards harnessing the potential of AI responsibly and inclusively, keeping in mind both the opportunities and the policy imperatives. Thank you once again.
Okay, so you can leave. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.